welcome, mamas. Today I'm getting into one very helpful shift, one conversation to bring deeper connection or reconnection with your partner after baby comes. We all know our worlds get rocked when babies come, whether it's your first or your fourth. It's overwhelming, and the distance between us and our partners can get gradually wider and wider, sometimes and actually often without realizing it, because you get in a routine. It's everything day to day just revolves around what your baby or child needs, a grocery run, gotta go for that errand to the bank, work, etc. And you're just tapped out by the end of the day. It gets easier and easier to lose that priority, to lose the time that you have, to lose the energy that you had once had for more connection. I often hear tips out there for a lot of concrete habits to reconnect, like check in for 10 minutes a day, ask these specific questions to each other, say this, look into each other's eyes for 20 seconds, etc., etc. And that can be valuable and helpful. And I sometimes will give helpful tips like that too. The idea is that basically if you put habits like that into place, it'll bring back a spark, or it can help with that love and connection. Well, sometimes it does. Maybe. Habits and commitments do help a little bit. But if you think about it, it's really the spirit with which we're going to ask those questions, right? It's the vibe, the energy that we're going to have with each other in that 10-minute check-in. Because we all know, just going through the motions is not going to bring that cloak of warmth, that spark, that sense of deep love. And when you are tired and depleted, does it even feel like one more thing on a checklist of things to do in order to be a good spouse or a good family member as you're trying to be a good parent? I will be honest and say, if I go back a year and a half when I was more freshly postpartum and really in the trenches for a little while, I think I'd want to slap someone if they told me to schedule a 15-minute check-in once a day with my partner, because we didn't even have a routine. I mean, I didn't know what time it was, what was going on, because, it was just a really hard period. So if you're at a point of being that depleted, or even not being that depleted, but just being in the thick of things, how genuine is it going to be? How warm, how deep will the feeling be? Will the connection be when it does feel like something on a checklist? So this suggestion offers something a little different. Instead of coming up with a ritual, a strategy, day to day or week to week, how about couples having a conversation once in a blue moon, once in a little while, checking in a deeper way, one that will have ripple effects into the weeks and months ahead? And that question is, how do I want you to feel in my presence? How do we want to feel in each other's presence? Okay. What is our way of being together? Are we connected to the love we have for one another, the affection, the respect when we approach each other? And are we open to receiving it when it's offered? Okay. And that's like the briefest interaction or an important discussion, either way. I remember I was working with a couple that got annoyed with me when I shared this idea early on in our work together. They were going through the motions based on some book or article they'd read, and they were, kind of executing these strategies. And they still weren't feeling much change. And honestly, again, like if I had heard myself recommending this, if I heard someone else, I guess, recommending this when I was a few months postpartum without more context, I think I'd be annoyed too. Like, we're barely sleeping and we're going to think about now this huge question of how we relate to one another and go in this deep place. But that's the thing. It's actually more simple than doing these strategies day to day. I think it simplifies things. It gets down to the core more directly, more explicitly than integrating rituals. It can be more easily grounding because it's getting to the core of what you're looking for, what you're seeking from one another, and what you want for each other. And you don't have to make consistent routine time for this. It should really just bleed into the day kind of organically. So let's say you and your partner are just, facing the reality of where you are now together. Can you share the exhaustion, the delights and the joys, the sorrow or grief? And, with some humor sometimes if you can you be in the thick of it together and weary-eyed, weary-bodied, weary-minded, be generous with love? Now, what does that look like, right? In the weariness, how can there be an expanse of love when there is certainly not an expanse of reserves or energy? And I've heard partners ask me this question, and then I've seen them 2 seconds later, answering this question for each other in such profoundly beautiful ways. So what I've heard sitting with partners who do this is, I want you to feel appreciated. I want you to feel supported. I want you to feel protected. I want you to feel desired. I want you to feel cherished. I want you to feel relaxed. Okay? These are just some words. And I'm telling you, even just hearing your partner say to you something like that, even just one of those words, wow, what a calming effect it has. Soothing, sweet, right? I've seen this in front of me many times. Because when it becomes explicit, right? First of all, we get let in a way that maybe has just been passed over for a really long time. We get let in. Oh, really? Really? You want that from me? You want me to feel that? And even though your logical mind might know that that could be an intention of your partner, being told is an experience that goes beyond knowing something. You start to feel it, okay? Also, when something like this becomes explicit, there's more of an accountability because there's a heightened awareness, right? Oh, we're saying this out loud. We're acknowledging this. We are hearing each other. Okay. And this is what I'm getting at about a loving way of being with one another rather than going through the motions. Again, I'm going to repeat this. How do you want your partner to feel in your presence? And how do you want to feel in theirs? Because let me tell you, you can be on an indulgent date for hours and hours with someone and not have any moments of connection. You may have experienced this with someone before, right? Or with your partner before. You can have a discussion trying to hit all the themes on a list and you're not feeling the warmth and openness. But you could be sitting on the couch dirty with spit up or picking up the food your toddler threw all over the floor. That was me today, right? And have a tender moment or a playful moment or exchange looks with kind of like a glint in the eye that helps you know you aren't alone, that you're with someone who cares, who sees and who wants to laugh and who wants to connect with you. You're going to have to ask, hey, what's romance to us at this season of our lives? Like, I love a fancy date night as much as anyone. We try to have them as much as we can, but I actually find there's something more deeply romantic about knowing and feeling that commitment to one another, the commitment to being kind, to being warm, to being soothing with one another. In the day-to-day. And it doesn't have to be exhausting. It doesn't have to be some kind of, uphill effort. Actually, again, I find it exhausting postpartum or even with a toddler to be scheduling regular meetings once a day. There are some days where there isn't room for it. Some days I don't want to talk at the end of the day, right? But maybe when we can hold hands, or if someone shares they just need space because they're touched out and their partner says, hey, I miss being near you, but I totally get it. Take the time you need. That's an act of love, right? So let me break this shift down in a step-by-step way, as clearly as possible. If you want to start a podcast or grow your existing one, Juliana Barbati and her team have you covered. They handle the entire process from building episode funnels to production and marketing, so you can focus on reaching your audience. Visit julianabarbati.com and let them know I sent you. 1, face the reality you're in together. Some of it's super hard and some of it's sweet, right? The hard part is usually less time or responsibility, maybe dealing with some recovery, birth trauma, or extra stressors, right? And then there's sweet parts, getting to adopt these beautiful new roles as parents, getting to know your little one and their personality, getting to see your partner in this new role as a parent. There should be moments of delight. I hope there are. And so some of it's hard and some of it's just extremely joyful. It's a mix. And the reason I mention this acknowledgement is because there's an exhale that can come from just acknowledging the reality you're dealing with and then having realistic expectations about, hey, what's romance going to look like? What is care and affection going to look like in the season of life? Facing the way that you guys connect is going to change, right? It's going to change for now. And sure, it's okay to miss the spontaneity that may have been easier before, just to pop out of the house when you wanted to, and some things you might have enjoyed before together that might be harder now, or you just get to enjoy less now. Sexual intimacy is different. Definitely going to have a few episodes on that coming up. And, along with those difficulties and with those things you kind of give up, there's also, it's not just giving stuff up. It's also an opportunity for new ways of connecting, an opportunity for a deeper knowing of one another in this phase of life and deeper meaning making as a couple. So again, it's a mix, right? Now, the answer is not to muster more energy and sweat harder and another pressure system of be a good parent, be a good spouse, do these things, do that thing, and try to take some of that heavy energy going into this new role into your partner and start doing this list of things. No, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying it's normal that there isn't going to be as much energy for that kind of sweat. And you don't want a pressure system of, hey, do all these things to make sure you're being a good spouse. No, actually, it's time for grace. It's time for grace. And especially in postpartum recovery, and I really do want to highlight this, there needs to be extra sensitivity with a mom in physical and hormonal recovery. So we're not talking about one more thing on a checklist or one more thing you're quote unquote doing wrong or not doing enough of. That is very important. That's counterproductive. So it's none of that. It's, hey, how do I want you to feel with me? How do I want to feel with you? Right? We don't want to be on opposing sides. We don't want to be like we're on different teams. We don't want to be tit for tat. We want to be in a spirit of understanding, of warmth, right? To share needs without being seen as an attack, right? In the mess of a day where laundry is piled up and spaghetti for dinner for the third time in a row, no one has slept. A warm smile, right? Like a laugh, a groan, just holding each other. It doesn't even need to be verbal at all, okay? Now, there are often blocks to this. I'm very aware, okay? Because I know some people are listening and are like, oh, if it were only that easy to just say that and, all this warmth is going to flow. I know there are blocks to this. I see this all the time. Defensiveness comes up because when our partners have complaints or disappointments, it can feel like something's unfair. And they may not be understanding our side, right? And then we don't fully have that kind of trust. And so we get our shields up. Even deciding that that's not the goal, even deciding and making explicit to each other, sharing with each other that your wish is that it were different and that were easier. Just saying, I wish this felt different for you, for me, and that we know we want our children to absorb peace from us, right? Instead of strife. That's a good start. That's a more solid start than you think. And that mutual desire to shift something, the way you approach your partner, the energy you have between is going to bring more momentum and impact than going through a list of emotions, like going through the motions with a list of things to do to reconnect. So yes, it can be, I don't want to be black and white about this. It can be impactful to commit to hugging for 30 seconds a day or to stare into each other's eyes for 20 seconds. Of course, that can be a habit that brings a moment of intimacy, but it just can be flipped. And if adding things like that to your day to day, like if you're like me and that just seems tiring, or like just one more thing on a checklist, or if you want to get to the core just in a more straightforward way, the decision to take seriously how you guys make each other feel, to share that with one another, to have a conversation like that, well, it flips it. It's like if we commit to this and we say to each other and almost like vows to each other of how we want to make each other feel, to reconnect with that, longer hugs or gazes or sharing sweet things and hearing sweeter things and being really present with each other in moments and not even being verbal, can come more naturally or organically as a result. Do you see what I mean? It flips it. Instead of going through the behaviors first and hoping that the warmth comes, it's like, hey, let's start with our actual core, deepest intentions for each other. And then the patterns might come more naturally. Okay. So if reconnecting feels really hard and you keep getting stuck in dead-end conversations that leave you really frustrated, click the link below for my freebie resource in the show notes. I'm sharing one of the most effective strategies I've seen melt walls of ice between couples again and again. You can download the video for free and subscribe to my podcast so you get notified when there's a new episode. I'm here for you and your family. See you next week. Goodbye.